Good morning, monsters, and welcome to this week's episode of Monsters on the Edge here on the Untold Radio Network. We are live. Good morning, Lee. I'm glad that it is above zero for you. It is apparently by my little clock down there, it is just zero here in Neenah, Wisconsin. So glad that you're above zero. We're getting there. It has been very cold here in Wisconsin. If you guys I think it's been very cold all over the U.S. What am I saying? Hopefully everyone out there is staying safe and you guys got power and everything. And otherwise, if you didn't have power, you probably wouldn't be watching my show. All right, we're done with that. All right, Octopus, welcome to the show. Mary Jo, welcome to the show. If you guys have any questions or comments throughout the show, put them in the comments section and I will try and bounce back and forth and pay attention to them as much as possible. We are not much above zero. Yeah, exactly. Good job. All right. Coming up, guys, if you guys want to meet myself in person as well as members of my team, we are going to be at Obscura Paracon, kicking off 2026 here, March 21st through the 22nd in DeKalb, Illinois. Tickets are available at obscuraparacon.com. And then we head to Contact Modalities Expo, May 1st through the 3rd in Delavan, Wisconsin. Myself and fellow Untold Radio host Dean Bertram is going to be in attendance there, as well as a ton of other familiar faces for you guys, hopefully, if you've listened to a lot of my shows, as well as some new faces. So going to be a great time there. Ton of guests. And speaking of a ton of guests, Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Convention, we have over 20 speakers and workshops for you on Saturday, May 9th in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. And it is going to be a great big day. We have over 40 vendors and workshops, speakers. And we kick it off Friday afternoon with a kids' educational informational daylight Bigfoot hike. Lauren Smith, Chris McCurry, and myself from the CAPS team and Kelly Milner-Halls will be leading this expedition. And then for the bold and the daring, we also have a night adventure. Lauren Smith, Chris, myself, along with Jay Bachochin, Ken Gerhard, and Larry Eisler will all be attending that. Then, guys, on Saturday, June 13th, we head to the Chicago Paranormal Convention in Countryside, Illinois. And then coming up in October, I'll be at the Rio Community Library and the Belleville Community Library. So that's what we got coming up there. But today, after we're going to go and show you some really cool stuff. That's what we're going to do. We are coming up here on the 5-year anniversary of the passing of an amazing Bigfoot researcher, an inspiration to myself, and who kind of started me officially on the CAPS journey. I had been already interested in the paranormal for some time, and obviously cryptids throughout my whole life. But it wasn't until I met Craig Sulk and his wife Barb at the Hayden Adventure in Upper Michigan that I actually realized that these creatures were not only in Wisconsin, but around the entire United States. So this is basically the inspiration of what got started me on my journey for CAPS. So today we are going to be talking about the Hayden Adventure property, which is 10 years of Bigfoot research in the Upper Peninsula. I was kind of shocked by that too as well, Lee. It has been 5 years. He passed away in April of 2021. So 5 years now. So this is a presentation that I do on the road. After his passing, we took his whole tour that he gave on the property. We'll explain this more later, but the whole tour that he gave on the property to people that came to see his evidence. And we took it into a traveling show and kind of museum display. And I've been kind of going around the country, all over events and stuff, sharing the evidence and keeping the legacy of Craig Sulk and the Hayden Adventure alive. So that's what we are going to be talking about today. So hopefully you guys enjoy this. If you guys have any questions throughout the show, please throw them in the comments section, because I have the entire hard drive queued up. So if there's any pictures, video, or evidence from 10 years of research that you guys would like to see besides what's in the presentation, I would be more than happy to share that with you today and answer any questions that I can about this legacy that he left us. So without any further ado, let's take a look at the Hayden adventure. In 1992, Craig and Barb Sulk purchased 80 acres of land just outside of Menominee, Michigan, to hunt and live on. Because they were avid hunters, they set up trail cameras all over the property to document the numerous animals and their growth over the season. It was in May 2012 that a series of 3 game camera photos changed their life forever.
When I first saw these 3 photos, I knew there was something wrong in the middle. So I saved all 3 of them photos and just kept flipping through them. And I'm thinking, that I don't know what that is in the photo. So that's why I kept it. And I thought, this is something. And I just wanted experts to come and, somebody tell me what is in this photo.
On this episode of Finding Bigfoot, the team travels to one of the most remote areas in the Midwest, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, to investigate trail camera photos of a possible Bigfoot stalking its prey.
The size in proportion to the distance, there's no way that's another human on this property. We had so many people calling wanting to see it, and being that we didn't know exactly what was in the photo, although we really believed at the time it was a Bigfoot, the idea was let people come and decide for themselves. So what we've set up here is come, this is what the experts have told us, and a person can decide for themselves. And it's really, we don't look at this as a business or like a tourist destination. This is more educational. People come, look, Bigfoot's real. Me and my wife know that it's a real thing because all the activity we've had that we were totally oblivious to in 2012. But since then, and then you can start to put the pieces together. Oh my, these things really are real. But when people come here, it's not my job to convince you that they're real. It's my job to just present my evidence that we've captured here on the property and let you decide for yourself.
In 2020, the team from Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society became the official investigators of the property and have been hard at work ever since, gathering evidence and setting up experiments and more. After a short battle with thyroid cancer, Craig passed away in 2021, but the groundwork he laid out and the story of his Bigfoot named Hayden will live on. This is their story. Thank you, Lee, for that. I did not realize that it was still playing through there. So yeah, I apologize for choking over part of that and that you had to listen to that. So there you go. So that gives you a little bit of background about the property and Craig himself. And yeah, so this is a little bit about everything that happened on the property. There's photos, evidence, videos, and hopefully I don't cough over any more of it. So here we go. So Craig was very, these are the original photos. They were taken 1 second apart, and I will go, this is photograph 1, 2, and 3 that were sent into Finding Bigfoot. This is the first one here. As you can see, there's nothing in the background back here. I have gone through these, other people have gone through these, and were unable to find any other anomalies or anything in these photographs. Photograph 2 shows something standing back here. With analysis and stuff, we believe that this creature was about 6.5 feet tall standing. In this image, it's actually kneeling. One leg is down and bent, and the other leg is up. And if it were standing, it would be about 6.5 feet tall, which is consistent with other evidence that we found on the property later on. And then 1 second later, the creature is gone. So there you go. These are the original 3 photographs that were taken on the property that incited the whole Finding Bigfoot coming out, and then afterwards, all these people wanted to see the evidence and stuff, having Craig open up the property. So there we go. Craig was very, adamant about just being curious and wanting to know what was going on with all this stuff. And so this is Cliff Barrickman from the North American Bigfoot Center and Finding Bigfoot. According to Matt Moneymaker, they believed that the creature was facing away from the camera, which would be this image right here, because it was all one color. It didn't look like it had any clothing or anything on it. So Craig and Barb had the image rotated and then kind of drawn in to simulate what they believed this creature would have looked like from the front. So this is hidden, because Bigfoot is always hidden. Hyden, as you see at the top here, spelt a little different, but that's what Craig decided to name him. So Craig was very curious. He always wanted answers. He never assumed anything about anything on the property. He never put his opinion out on any of the evidence that was there. He presented it to you in an open forum and said, this is what we captured, this is what was on the property, and let you make your own decisions. So when we started investigating the property in 2020, we reached out to Cliff Barrickman himself to try and get his opinion on the photographs and what happened on the property. And this is what Cliff had to say.
Hey everyone, this is Cliff Barrickman from Finding Bigfoot. I'm reporting to you from the North American Bigfoot Center out in Oregon. This is Murphy behind me. And I just wanted to make a short little video just kind of talking about the evidence and the property that Craig and Barb find themselves living on. It's very interesting. It certainly is very squatchy property. And that game cam photograph might be the real deal. There's no way any of us can ever know. But I've always thought of it like this. If it's not a Bigfoot, what is it? It might be a person maybe, but this sure isn't built like a person. It's very short and squat. I mean, maybe not short, but like very squat and heavy and robust. And it sure seems peculiar that a person would be there. Of course, what are the chances of catching a Sasquatch being there at that same moment too? So that's also interesting. I remember doing the night investigation on the property. I don't remember if we got anything. I don't think we did. But man, it is squatchy there and great habitat. And I think that picture is probably of a Sasquatch. None of us will ever know for sure, but it sure is compelling. It sure is interesting. And as those little teases keep us running after the prize, it keeps us reaching for that gold ring of a fantastic photograph. And I just want to, thank Craig and Barb for sharing the photograph with us on Finding Bigfoot. And then, of course, sharing their love for Sasquatch with all of us.
All right, so this the background of this picture, or the slide, is actually very important as well. This is the Hyden field on Craig and Barb's property, and as you can see, there's little displays around his property. You can't see more. There's more over here, and that wraps around the other side. But each one of these little signs had information about the Bigfoot, about evidence on the property, and Craig would walk you around the property and show you exactly where each of these things happened, where the photos were taken, where evidence was found, collected, stories and stuff. So it was a really cool experience for anybody that got to go up and see this. So the first thing we're going to talk about is some of the stick structures that were found on the property. The largest and most impressive would be this large teepee structure. It is over 20 feet tall, and it was comprised of, I want to say, seven or eight different trees that were all put together on this. This was discovered on their property in early 2020. Just before we had started showing up on this property, and we used this as kind of a focal point for quite a while for our investigation. So this is the very large structure. Here's another shot of it, and then so that you can kind of see, it was just off. Over here is a 2-track dirt road that ran around the middle part of the property that was called the island. It's called an island, ironically, because it was mostly underwater, but it was an island because it was separated from the rest of the woods of the property by this 2-track dirt road. You can really see the scale of this right here in this photograph. Craig over on the side here is 6'3", and this thing is much taller and higher than him. So again, you see a little peanut butter jar here. We'll get to that in a little bit, but this is where we spent a lot of time focusing on our investigations when we were on the property for a lot of reasons. This is right out in front of that structure. So there's a little deer track that goes from the dirt track back and then past the large teepee structure. And this was about a foot tall, and it was very, very much similar to the large structure behind it, but again, only about a foot tall sitting right in front of it. So it was really weird that, if something hadn't put that there, that this would have fallen naturally, and especially right by this larger structure. We really ruled out Craig as a suspect in any of this manipulation of stuff, because Craig was very anal, but he was also very lazy. He claimed that he only had so many bendovers in a day. So when he would clear his shooting lanes on the property, when he would clean up debris and stuff on the road, he would kind of bend over, kick it to the side, or when he would trim things, he would only trim it off about knee high so he didn't have to bend over any further. And this was very much, you could see on everything that he did on the property. So it's very ironic that he would have gone through and taken the time to build any of this stuff, or do any manipulation to try and fool anyone, or that he did this himself. And it wasn't done by anybody else on the property, because throughout the time that we investigated up there, we had over 20 trail cameras on this property between him and myself at any one given time. And there was nobody, if anybody came on that property from any of the roads or any of the easy access points or anything, there's only 2 neighbors to this property, one kind of on either side. He owned 80 acres and the guy on the other side owned 120. But there was no way anybody else was going to come onto this property. Here's another structure. This one was kind of leaning. This one would have been directly across the 2-track road, kind of from where the large teepee was. This one was farther away. We did number them all. We cataloged them all. We took pictures from every angle, documented how many sticks were in the structures. We documented which direction they were facing, and pretty much anything that we could document about these we did or tried to with any of the ones that we found. These are unique. This is what most people describe as stuffing. So you have a couple of tree trunks and you have a lot of smaller sticks wedged in between them. There was only one area of the entire 80 acres that had these. Now, I say that they're sticks, and this is very important because the difference between sticks and branches, a branch kind of forks off in all directions, whereas a stick is straight. Any little things that came off of it were broken off. So these were completely straight sticks. They didn't branch, they didn't fork, they didn't just fall out of a tree and land like this. And if they had, we would have seen this on other areas of the property. This was right behind where there was 2 pedestal grills set up on the property. Lisa's, when she was in Mount Shasta, she found an area of stuffing. Thank you, Lee. So this area is right behind the grills. So for whatever reason, if they were watching the people while they were grilling or came up to, like smell the food, or I don't know, but right behind this area was probably about 100 to 150 square foot area where these stuffings were, but nowhere else on the property that we were found any of this stuff. So if it was natural, you would have thought that you would find it at least in some other places, because the trees, I mean, there was variety of trees on the property, but enough that you should have seen the same kind of structures if this was something natural. All right, this is my favorite structure. So one thing that we found on the property is everywhere that there was a deer stand on the property, within a radius of that deer stand, like 50 to 100 feet away, we would find a very distinct stick structure. For most of them, at least, that were still in use by himself or his relatives or anybody on the property. And it was really interesting because these structures were again like found by there. So this one was found off of a deer trail. And as you walked in on this deer trail, you kind of went off past the deer blind, would be over to your right, a little bit farther away. And then there was a large X right by the side of the trail. And then this one was farther up. So hopefully you can hear me describe this, because this one gets really interesting. You see here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 branches here, and this tree, okay? But it looks like this all kind of fell around this tree. But when you lift this up, this is not a tree, it is a stick. That's actually just standing right here. This one is placed holding this up. This is woven through here. These are 2 different branches. This one is shoved through this. You notice kind of the look on my face here at that point. When me and Craig were looking at this structure, as soon as I started touching it, directly back over my shoulder where that the strap is, we both felt like something was watching us. And it got really creepy, like that they knew we were touching their structure or something. It seems weird, but it was a very eerie feeling. It passed pretty quick, but it was just like something was watching us while we were disturbing this structure. And I tried not to disturb it as much as possible, but I wanted to display that this whole thing looks like it fell over that middle tree. But in fact, that middle tree is just another branch that literally was shoved in the ground at least like 4 or 5 inches. So it was shoved down there. But when I find stuff like this, I want to see like if that stick is a tree and what's still attached and stuff. So I try and like wiggle it a little to see, you know. And this one just pulled straight up, and it was a broken off branch at the bottom. It was no root system, nothing. So it had been shoved into the ground by these things. Now there should be this is a close-up of the top of this, and as you can see, like these things are all woven together. You got this one here that's going behind this one, in front of this one, and this one goes through the whole thing. So it was all completely woven in there. There's no way that this could have naturally fallen the way it was. And this one right here is that tree stick that I was describing earlier. So one of the things that we thought of when we were investigating this property is exactly what are these things for? These teepee tree structures. So one of the things that we thought of is that they're actually a map. So as I said, we had documented all the structures that we found, and we started plotting them out on a map, as well as looking at the deer trails on the property. And if you walk up to any of these structures, the main branch tree of the structure would be the main game trail that led through that area. Each of the supporting sticks that came off of that structure correlated to one of the other game trails in that area. So if there was 5 sticks that made up a structure, you would have 5 game trails that went off. 1 through the middle, and then 3 or 4 out the sides that would branch off in those directions. So with that in mind, we started following these game trails. Now, I do want to point out that we have tried this system on other properties where we have found stick structures and tried to map them the same way, and this did not follow suit. So we had quite a few stick structures that we found in the Rhinelander, Wisconsin area at the time, and we mapped out those the same way, and they did not follow the game trail pattern as they did at the Hide and Adventure. So on this specific property, each one of these structures, for the most part, mapped out the game trails that were in that area. With that in mind, we followed these game trails, and one led us way back into the woods, and directly to this structure that you see here. So this is Craig standing next to this one as well. As you can see, it's almost twice his size again. It's over 10 feet tall, just a large structure, all interwoven at the top, all pushed into this one section. So really interesting stuff there. Okay, then we actually had, for those of you who are familiar with Christopher Noel, he actually wrote a whole book on stick structures and some of the possible meanings and glyphs and stuff like that. And we had brought him in for a convention up there, and he came out and looked at these stick structures as well and was very convinced that they were not natural structures. He also was very tried to find one on the property that we had not already found. And he managed to find a couple smaller ones, but that was about it. So he was off in the woods more than he was on the trail. So really cool, really, really good to have him out there and get a second look at all this stuff. So that's Christopher on the property. All right. So when we talk about these stick structures, you know, a lot of people say, well, you didn't see the Bigfoot make them. What makes you think that they actually created these structures? And that kind of always bothers me too. But one of the things that we had is a little bit of collaborating evidence. And so this structure here was back, as you can see, this is in the island of the property in July of 2020. And you can see that a lot of it is underwater right here. So we weren't able to get in there very readily to look at this structure, but you could see it from the road. As I said, the 2-track road that ran around different parts of his property. So in July, I put on waders and I went into this area to try and look at this structure up close in person. And so at this time, the water level that you see in this picture is very low. It had been a lot higher to the point that I would have needed waders. I could have probably got in here without waders at this time, but originally when we had looked at this area before, it was very deep water. So went in there with waders, and at the base of this structure, we started finding footprints. So here's one of those tracks. You can see the heel of it back here, and then some toes up in this area. Very muddy, mucky water. Now, there's no way to really tell how long these prints have been there because they had been underwater. They're very wet, very, not clean, nice footprints, but they're all underwater. And they had come to the surface when the water level had drained out, and they're all right around this structure. So here's another one. This one's a little bit easier to see, I think. You can see the heel, and then down in here to the toes back in this area. Many of these also were over branches. There's more. These are the best pictures of them. But so when they step like on a branch. So the branch is in the middle of the foot. So you get like toe impression and heel impression, obviously. This one, though, we actually cast. So here's the heel and then the toes. And if you've ever seen me in person, this is the cast that I actually bring along to those presentations. Is the first cast that was ever taken on the property. So this is the actual in-ground imprint that we had cast on that property. So that was July of 2020. All right. So again, Craig had very anal retentiveness about the property. He would always do things in a certain way. And one of the things that he always did was they were open Friday, Saturday, Sunday, every weekend in the summer for people to come out and take the tour and hear the evidence and stuff. And he would always mow the lawn every Thursday. He would mow the entire Hayden field, which is what you see in these pictures here. Again, this is the signs and stuff, and this is the Hayden field. These are a couple guests that were on the property. We'll get to that in a second. But so he always had a very set routine. And he believed that, you know, these creatures on the property knew that routine, and there was a mutual respect. There was areas on the property that if in the spring when he would set up, he would put caution tape or chains across that 2-track road that went around the island, because every time that he would clean up in the spring, there would be a tree across that road. Like, hey, don't come back here. You know, like, this is our area. So out of respect for them, he ended up, not using that part of the property, as well as the back part of the property. He believed that they would circle around and they would watch from back there, back from the place that he called the Knob, which we're going to get to in this story. So on one day, they had this big wooden sign with a Bigfoot on it with an arrow to help people find the property and stuff. And they would take and they would go pick it up and they would drive it in the pickup truck out to the main road and highway 577, and then so that people knew where to turn to go down 7-lane to get to their property. And so he would always drive this sign out there, put it out in the morning, then drive back, and then drive back about a half mile onto his property, and then set up the signs and the gift shop and stuff for people to come and hang out for the day. And one day, his wife, Barb, decided that she didn't want to ride all the way out to the road, that she was just going to, take a walk back there on the 2-track road and go back to the property and start setting up while Craig took the sign to the road. And about halfway back to the property, Craig went out to the road and got the sign, or set up the sign, came back and started driving down the Hayden Road back to the property. And Barb was a lot farther back than he had thought that she should have gotten in the amount of time that he was gone. And he asked her, why, how did you get so far back here? You really must have been like running. And she said that it felt like she was being followed, like she heard noises and stuff and vocals in the woods next to her. And they believed that this was a break of tradition, right? So every day they would both ride in the truck, take the sign out, come back, go to the back of the property together. And here is Barb doing something that she wasn't supposed to, that this was not the norm for what was going on the property. So the day went on, and she and Craig were sitting back there, and all of a sudden there was this huge crash. And they came to find out that, as you can see in this photograph here, this is a 91-foot tall tree, and it is wedged in the V of another tree. And this thing had been there for quite a long time. You can see the photo here as well with some people on the property. So this had been stuck up in that tree for quite a while. It was not a windy day. And this thing came, something had to, in Craig's opinion, push it out of that V and have it come crashing down onto the property. So there was no way that the wind or anything, it was not stormy. There was no way that this tree could have come out of there unless something had pushed it. And he said that this was them telling him that, we don't appreciate you breaking your tradition of what you were doing, your routine. And so they were very adamant to continuously follow that routine from then, because they didn't want to upset their forest neighbors. They did live on this property as well. They lived up on the front part of this, right on the road, and then there was 80 acres behind them. Barb still lives there. So here's an aerial shot of that. So here you can see this is the Hayden field right here where all the signs and stuff are. This is the little carport where they would sit under. This would have been the little gift shop booth that they had. And then this is where the 91-foot tree is. Here is the pond back here, kind of more of a scum pond, frog pond, not really like you wouldn't want to drink out of it. And then this is the back turnaround, and there's more to the property beyond this on the sides and stuff here, but this is just kind of looking at this. So one day, Craig had one of his friends over, and he said, well, excuse me, if you think that these creatures are coming from back here behind the knob, and coming around and kind of watching and stuff when they would have people over and they would sit here, because, as Craig believed, that they were the entertainment for these creatures. So again, if you're happy, healthy, fed, and, they have nothing better to do in the woods, here's a very regimented person that they know that they can come and watch and be entertained by, see what is Craig doing today? What is he up to? And so they would come around, and he believed would come from the back corner of the property here up to watch them. So he and his friend took a walk back here Here's the trail. They started at the carport and they walked around here and around. And they felt that they had disturbed something because when they made it out here to this 2-track road, as you can see on the map here, they found a wet footprint right here in the middle of the trail. And the trail is, wide enough for a large pickup truck to drive around, because that's what Craig had. And he said that there was no reason why they should have left that track right in the middle of the road unless they wanted them to see it. Like, again, you were trespassing where you don't belong. You don't go back here normally. And they left this footprint right out in the open for them to see. So here is Craig's foot, and here is the wet footprint. And it was very fresh because when they came out, they saw it. They tried to take a picture of it, but they didn't have cameras with them. So they had to run back to the carport and get the camera that was there and come back. And in that time, they managed to snap 2 photos of it, and that was it before it dried up. So these are the only photos of it that they had. But you can see that, there's like toes up here, and then it goes back. But it literally dried up in front of their eyes, that this thing had been that fresh. These are very interesting photographs as well. So over the winter, we were setting up trail cameras on different parts of the property, not so much to monitor the creatures themselves, but to watch for indentations in the snow, because we wanted to see if these things were leaving footprints or if they were moving through or anything. Even if we couldn't capture them on camera, we could tell if there was footprints, within the photo shot. One of the things that we did on this property, instead of taking motion capture pictures, is we started setting them up to be time lapse. So no matter what, a photograph was taken every 5 minutes on all these cameras. We had thousands of photographs to go through, but this yielded a much better outcome for us than just trying to get the motion, because as we know, if something doesn't move in that frame of motion around the camera, you're not going to get it on video. You're not going to get a picture of it. But something can be, 100 yards away, and you're still going to get it on camera if that camera goes off at that time. So every 5 minutes, these cameras would take a picture just to document any changes in the scenery or anything, or the footprints on the property. The interesting thing is this one camera was overlooking the Hayden field for the winter. It didn't take a single photo. Did not work. Yet in the middle of the field, coming out of the wood line and crossing the entire Hayden field and going back into the woods on the other side. So we have no trail beyond what we have here. There's no trail past the wood line. There was the snow wasn't dense enough to leave tracks. It was more sporadic. You couldn't follow it in the other side or the other side. But there's 2 lines of tracks that moved across the property, all the way across the whole Hayden field and over into kind of back by that 91-foot tree on that map earlier. The weird thing about these tracks, and again, they're in the snow, so snow melts, it expands, it distorts the actual footprint in the snow. We know this. With that being said, though, they were wider than they were long. Almost as if whatever left them, and these are big. You can see down here, this is one of them next to my foot. So they're quite bigger than my foot. Again, could have been melted out and not distinct as you would like to see, obviously, because mine is a very crisp, clean footprint, and these things are kind of more divots in the snow. But again, wider than longer, as if this thing was sidestepping across the field. Instead of walking heel, toe, this thing was like walking side to side, side of foot to side of foot across the field. Really interesting. I've never heard of anything. I actually, when I first met Doug Hychek on this show at a convention, I showed him these, and he was even baffled by these things. So don't know if they're, like I said, same as Craig always said, I don't know what they are. I'm just simply presenting the evidence to you guys, and you guys can make up your own opinions of what they are. But they were very interesting, and they went on for the entire width of the open area of the property there. So, all right. As of 2022, this was my favorite stick structure that we talked about earlier, the one with the not a tree in the middle of it. There was a very bad winter storm of 2021, 2022, and this thing has been completely leveled the last time that we were looked at it in 2022. So there's nothing left of that one. As you see, a big branch here kind of came down on top of it. And the teepee structure, interestingly, also got knocked down, but now it's a giant X with a tree up the middle of it. So I'm not entirely sure if this thing got knocked down or if it got renovated. X's are also considered stick structures. So did they change it from a teepee to an X? Or was this just wind and snow and damage that caused it to fall and just happened to turn it into an X? But it's kind of interesting. But the last time that we were on the property was actually in the end of 2024. So we haven't gotten a chance to go back up there. We felt that after Craig passed, slowly throughout the time, the activity kind of died down on the property. Barb wasn't going back there to hunt anymore. She hunted off of the back of her property up in the front. Craig wasn't out there. There was nobody going back there aside from us. It became kind of more and more overgrown, and it just stopped having like interest. Like they weren't coming around as much because there wasn't as much entertainment and consistency to having people on the property. But we continued to research up there until the end of 2024. So, all right, moving on. So we did a lot of different experiments on this property. Craig said that he wanted us to get to the bottom of this. He wanted us to find these creatures, discover everything possible about them, and allowed us to use this property as basically a giant petri dish to do experiments and see what we could do out there. And while Craig was around, we had a lot of stuff. We'll get to that yet still in our evidence section here. But one of the experiments that we did, we started out with the peanut butter jars. So we started hanging these jars of peanut butter throughout the property. We hung one in the back shooting lane, and that one stayed there we hung them in May, Memorial Day weekend. That one stayed there until October. We'll come back to that one later. But that one was fine. It's stuck around back there. The other jar, though, we hung off of the large teepee, because if this thing was, associated with these creatures, if this was someplace that they hung out or important to them, we thought that this was a good place to put it. While we're hanging this on this teepee, it was Friday evening, just at dusk, from the neighbor's property, we started hearing whoops. And I kind of got a little excited. We had to get an audio recorder going, and I kind of half-assed how I was hanging this peanut butter jar in the tree. So instead of punching a hole through it and using paracord, so it was very strong, wouldn't rip, wouldn't fall, I tied it around the lip of the jar. So it was just hung by the lip. And that was kind of my mistake on this one. So as you can see, we came back to investigate in June, and the jar was gone. So this is a big $8 jar of peanut butter from Walmart, the Walmart brand, the Great Value. It's a large jar. The loop is basically undamaged. The peanut butter jar is gone, like completely gone. Not on the ground, nowhere around it. So whatever took this had to knock it down and wander off with it. Okay. So that's fine. There are bears on the property. There are, raccoons. There's all kinds of wildlife on the property. We're not going to think too much of this at this time. But the thing is, Craig had trail cameras on this, the teepee structure, monitoring this. In one trail camera picture, the jar is hanging there. In the next picture, it's gone. So there's no photograph of a bear coming in, knocking it down. There's no photograph of a raccoon climbing up the structure, finagling it, dropping it down. You can see the ground. The jar isn't there. It's here. It's gone. No idea. So we decided to hang another one. This time I punched a hole through the lip of the jar, ran the paracord through the jar, hung it up on the tree, and left it. Came back again a month later. So this is the peanut butter jar hanging in the tree now, or not the tree, on the stick structure. You can see it kind of hanging right here. We came back and again, oops, oh my gosh, getting ahead of myself. So we left the jar there. Came back a month later. The jar is completely gone again. Now this time we have 2 trail cameras on it. One's mine, one's Craig's. One is video, one is photograph. Neither one of them captured anything with this jar again. One photo, one video, it is there. The next, it's gone. So nothing came in there, nothing disturbed it, nothing took it. We don't know where this jar is. It's not on the ground. It is not anywhere around it. I will also go farther and tell you at this time that come fall, we did a full grid pattern search of this area and the back area as well. The peanut butter jar that was on the back part of the property in the shooting lane lasted from May until October and then completely disappeared. We have not been able to find any of those 3 jars anywhere on the property. And as I said, we did a grid pattern search. We had several team members out there, up and down, back and forth in the fall where there's no grass, no underbrush or anything, where we could look through everything. Even in the little pond and stuff that was next to it, we walked that because it dried up in the fall. It's not there. So wherever these things are, they had to have been taken several hundred feet away or up in a tree or off the property or something. Here's where it gets interesting. I went online and I ordered tracking devices so that you could open up your phone and kind of not necessarily like live tracking, but it would give you a tracking if you were in proximity to this thing. So basically the idea was if the jar went missing again, you would take your phone, walk around the property and wait for it to ping that this peanut butter jar was nearby, right? So we electrical taped the crap out of that peanut butter jar, hung it back in the on the teepee, and you can see the little trackers stuck right here to the side. This was in July. When we went back to check this one, the jar is still there. And this time we have several videos, several pictures of squirrels coming and eating the entire jar. So within a couple weeks, a bunch of squirrels came and ate this entire jar of peanut butter. But it was there. And we have it on camera. So here's the question. If squirrels had eaten the other 2 jars, why weren't they on camera? If we got them, we didn't move the cameras. We didn't move the jar. Everything was in the same spots that it was. The only difference is this time we put a tracker on it instead of leaving it. So I don't know. Take that for what it's worth. It was very interesting. That was the last time that we experimented with that. We moved on to other projects and stuff. But so this is the one that was back in the shooting lane. This is the one that stayed there until October. It's was there. We still never found that one either. So again, 3 peanut butter jars completely vanished on the property, never showed back up. This was a project that my mom was working on the property. This was the gifting stump. This was right on the edge of the 2-track road, kind of opposite and down a couple hundred feet from the teepee structure. So what she did was she made a swizzle stick teepee back here. And then these stacks of rocks on either side here all have blue dots on them painted so that if they disappeared anywhere on the property and showed up somewhere, we would be able to track them and know that they were our rocks and, kind of see where they ended up. And then this was a Hot Wheels van that represented the capsule van when we brought it onto the property. And then this represented her car that she would park on the property when we'd go up there and camp for the weekends and stuff. So she set up this, and we came back to check this one out later. And this is what we found. So this is, again, a bunch of straws. They kind of blew over. No big deal. But as you can see, the Cap's van is completely missing. Now, if this was something natural, or I mean, not natural, but something like wind or weather or a bird or raccoon or something that kind of bumped it or knocked it over, you would think that it would have fell into the middle of this stump, or it would have rolled down off this side, right? Because it was sitting right here. But in fact, after we looked around for this thing, because we had to find it, it's way back here on the ground. So something would have had to pick it up across this opening to get back there. Either put it there or something. So me and Craig spent 30 minutes sitting here trying to toss it, roll it, drop it, because it's right here at the base of the stump. So you can see it's right up against the stump. It doesn't fall that way. We tried bumping it off the top. We tried rolling it off the top, and it would not fall. It would roll farther away from the stump. So something had to pick it up and move it there. Whether it was an animal or, a Bigfoot, I don't know. We didn't find any substantial scratches or like paint chips or anything on this thing to indicate that it was bitten, like a raccoon or something picked it up in its mouth, or a bird scratches it, or any kind of damage to it. So there wasn't like scratch marks from a small critter or anything that might have picked it up. Now, that might not be, look at, these things are pretty durable. You can throw them in a drawer with a bunch of other ones, and, they last quite a bit before getting scratched or beat up. But still, there was none of that. So could have just been a raccoon or something. They're shiny, they're metal, and moved it over there. We moved on from the gifting stump here, and we started doing this tray way in the back of the property. So this is back behind the car turnaround back there. And Ma would again she'd put out like some cookies or something here, or honey buns and stuff on this area. And then there was 4 Hot Wheels cars, one in each corner here, and then the rocks as well. And every time we come, this thing was knocked over and disturbed. And that could just be deer or something that did it. But it was always messed up. And for the longest time, from 2021, I think is when we started this, all the way up until the last time that we were up there. Well, not the last time, but one of the last times that we were up there, all 4 of these Hot Wheels cars were there. The last couple months when we were up there, though, one of the cars disappeared. Completely disappeared. We took a metal detector. We searched the whole area back there. Could not find it. And usually the cars would just fall off the tray and be laying somewhere like underneath it in the leaves or something like that. Could not find it. Found a lot of other things. Found a fly swatter, found a tin can, all kinds of stuff that we found with the metal detector back there. But definitely no Hot Wheels car. So completely gone. No idea where that thing went. One of the other things that we tried is the Sasquatch pheromones. So we want to have a semi-controlled experiment. So as I've talked about earlier, there's the island part of this property that's completely surrounded by this 2-track road. And what we did was we set up these Sasquatch pheromone chips around the inside of that island, kind of as a draw to get something to come into that middle of the island area. And we set up 11 trail cameras around the perimeter of the island. As you can see, you can kind of see the outline of the 2-track road here around this area. And so we set up these trail cameras so that every part of that road was covered, either by motion sensor or by time lapse. So the thought was that almost anything that crossed this road hopefully got caught on camera. This was to kind of just see what was in the area, what was moving through, and potentially if we could capture one of these creatures on camera. So we had 11 trail cameras over a period of 61 days. We had 30,787 pictures of deer, coyote, robins, turkeys, owl, crane, bugs, and spiders. Not a whole lot. We know that there's foxes on the property. We know that there was bears on the property. We have had a lot of other creatures and stuff, bobcats and stuff. So we know there's other stuff on this property, but we didn't capture it. So we moved on from this project and we started a new project the next year. So what we did was we thought that if these animals are on the property, we know that they're on the property, we should be able to get a photograph of them. So what we did was we set up 4 bait stations. So each bait station was designed to attract certain creatures, and they were far enough apart down shooting lanes so that we could monitor them and, kind of keep track of what came into these different areas. So the first one that we set up was all fruits, vegetables, that kind of stuff. The second one was fish and meat. I don't think there's meat there, just fish. And then the next one was sweets like syrup and cereal and things of that nature. So we had the 3 of those, and then we also got donated a baby cow carcass that had recently passed away. So we set up him. We named him Science. And we set him up in a remote part of the property, again, as a bait. We wanted to see what predators would come in, what would feed off this carcass, what scavengers would come in and see what would happen to it. And the other part of this, for science-based, was we wanted to see how long it would take for the entire carcass to disappear. Because people always say, what happened to the bones? Where are the remains of these animals? So we wanted to see what would happen specifically with that on this property. So this experiment lasted 5 weeks. We had 12,870 photographs and videos. And in those, we captured raccoons, possums, porcupines, deer, bear, a vulture, crow, mouse, squirrel, and other small birds. So we pretty much got everything that we expected except coyotes. We know that there's coyotes on the property, yet none of them showed up on any of these photographs. We also did not manage to capture a bobcat. So that was interesting as well. But, who knows if that's in the area or a certain part of the property or what have you. They might not have just been in the area. But otherwise, we consider this a very successful experiment that we were able to capture any known animal that we thought was on the property pretty much. And this was the first time that any of my cameras captured a bear. There had been bear photographed on the property. They hunted bears on the property. We know for a fact that on Craig's cameras, we were on the camera, and then about 10 minutes later, a bear was on that camera. So we know that they're there. But this was great because this was the first time that one of my cameras actually captured one. So, all right. So we've talked about the hidden picture that started it all, that was captured on a camera. November 23rd, 2021, the neighbor still hunted the property after Craig had passed away. Not his property. Dennis, the neighbor, hunted on Dennis's property, the 120 acres to the west of Craig's and Barb's property. And in the morning, he sent Barb, who forwarded this to me, these 2 photographs. So the one here is the morning photograph, and it shows something we'll get a closer picture of this in a second. It shows something very large standing in the middle of his shooting lane down here. And Dennis was not necessarily a believer in Bigfoot, kind of a skeptic, but the fact that he took the time to snap this photo and, what the heck is that thing, is really cool and appreciated. And then this is another photograph taken later that day from his deer hunting blind as well, and that creature is gone. So here is zoomed in. You can see what looks like something kind of walking across the path down here. And again, this is very zoomed in. but it's this large, all one color thing down there. So we contacted Dennis and we said, hey, can we come out and look for evidence, look for, footprints or anything like that where this photo was taken? And he said, of course you can, in the spring after deer hunting season, because he didn't want us interfering with any of the scents or smells or baits or anything on his property, which is fair, but very, very bad for trying to track one of these creatures. So with respect to that, we waited until spring, and this is our side-by-side comparison of that same photograph. Way out here, you can see our researcher, Resnick. He is, again, 6'3", and he is holding a 2x6. And the 2x6 is painted every 6 inches, black, white, black, white, black, white, so that we are able to see from a great distance how tall something would be. So as you can see, this thing dwarfs Rez. And Rez is a pretty big guy, but this is approximately where we believe this creature would have been, where we put Rez. And you can see that this thing is probably at least 7, maybe 8 feet tall. And the interesting thing is when we went out to where Rez was at that point, we found out that this was in an area of the property where we got to investigate the year before and had things thrown at us in the woods. So from off in the distance, we were standing in kind of like a car turnaround there as well, and these like little nuts or something came like flying out of the woods towards me and Ma and Barbara. And so we had our own experience right in the same area of the property where this photograph was taken or potentially taken. So it's not the only weird anomaly in that picture, though. So this is a lot closer, and this could be a little bit of pareidolia, but the fact that it isn't in any recreation or anything that we took later on. So you can see this is about like 5 to 6 feet away from his deer stand, and what looks like a creature standing here. There's eyes, nose, mouth, chest, and there's hands that come out like in front like this. Like he's, okay, sorry, the picture is backwards. So like this. So like it'd be holding them out in front of him. I don't know what this is because it is not part of the tree stump. It is not a brush or anything that's in the area. We had Ma did a recreation. Oops, I guess she doesn't do a recreation. Not in this presentation, she doesn't. But we do have pictures of Ma in the same spot in that same pose, and there's nothing there. There's nothing between the tree that you see here and then this one way in the back. So it's almost as if, like, if you believe in, these it could have been a young creature standing there, and because it was so close to Dennis and the deer stand, they didn't want Dennis to focus in on it. So this larger one walked out in the trail to kind of draw attention so this one could get away. That is kind of what we think, but we don't know what this thing is. It is, hopefully you guys can see what we're looking at. Again, there's an eye right here, nose, it'd be looking in this direction over here. So it's facing from the side profile view like this, or sorry, like this profile view. And then like a mouth here, chest, oops, not good at clicking, chest, and then like, I'm trying to see, the hands are right here. This is the thumb, and then the hands and the arm that comes up. I don't know. Ma found this, so really good eyes, because when we sent her the photo to kind of look at as well, she spotted that before she spotted the one in the back. So interesting. Kim says, like a portal. There's so much stuff going on in this property. This is a really short presentation. Well, it's a long presentation, but kind of highlights of the property. There was one area that has what was described as a portal. It's a tree that's arched over, And in the middle is this, the photograph is this like weird wavy line, and it looks like a portal was opening on the property there. We investigated that as well when we were on the property. Didn't really find much with it. Took a whole bunch of pictures of it. Didn't get to be able to reenact it or anything like that. As far as like, there was a question about, did he ever see a roping on the property? No flying cryptids of all. There was a dog man on the property that chased a bunch of cows. This is pretty well documented. They followed the line of cows that broke out of a pen and wandered around through the woods, off of a neighbor's property, several miles. These cows were like chased by something. And there's a photograph of a cow in their backyard. And then a couple minutes or something later, there's these two orangish red glowing eyes that are about like 7 feet up, that something was coming after this cow. So they believe, they sent these photos to Linda Godfrey, and she believed that this was a dog man on the property as well, because it didn't follow the Bigfoot activity that they had. So we've also had orbs on the property. This is where I saw the blue basketball size orb in the woods. My mom and other researchers have also seen the white little like golf ball size or softball size orbs all over up in trees and stuff. Now, there are fireflies on the property. We're very familiar with the difference between the fireflies that we're seeing and these other white orbs, circular orbs on the property. So I didn't see any of those little white orbs, but Ma would, because she was stationed in the middle of the property. We'll get to that in a second, a little bit more on that. But so that was this. There was also another trail camera photo, this one right here. And this one is absolutely phenomenal. I have no idea what triggered this photo. This was before my time. This was one of Craig's photos. It looks like 2019 when this one was taken. I'm going to pull down the presentation for a second here because I want to zoom in on this. Okay. So this is that photo outside of the slideshow. And it's very hard to see from here, but when you zoom in right here, there's a face, and this is very blurry picture. But there's a face right here and what looks like a body of something standing back here. And when you compare this to other photographs taken that same day and stuff, there's nothing there. And again, this thing is bigger than Craig. They did a reenactment, recreation of this, and there's nothing there. It's bigger than Craig. It's beyond a little like ditch over there, and then this is like up on a hill on the other side. So it was very interesting. I don't know why this one's so pixelated, because you can get a better view of this. But let me pull back up the slideshow here. Okay, so that's the picture that I just showed you. And then this is side by side. Here you can clearly see something standing here and the face. And then this is a photo from the same day. And then the creature is gone. So there's nothing in that area. It's not a tree. It's not anything natural in there. So something had walked in there. But this isn't what triggered the photo. So we don't know what exactly had triggered this, a bird, or, you know, it's far enough away from the camera that nothing should have, that this, whatever this is in this picture, did not trigger this picture. You know, it's well over 35 feet away, outside the realm or outside the range of the triggering of the trail camera. Okay. All right. So as I said, we had placed trail cameras around the property that were set for time lapse. Now this is where this gets interesting, because I showed you this background that we're looking at right here is the Hayden Field. Just behind the camera viewpoint here is a carport, and this is where Ma and Craig would usually sit, and then myself and another researcher, or sometimes Craig, would walk to the back of the property where this car turnaround is, and we would sit back there until it got weird. You would feel things, you would start to have experiences, hear things, feel like you're not alone, feel like you're being watched. And then we would proceed to walk from way back here, and we would walk past here on the 2-track road, and then we would go out to the teepee structure, around, and then out to the main road. I would do a howl, and then would come back up the main trail back to base camp. The reason why we did this was we figured that while we're out walking, when stuff got weird in the back, they would follow us out past base camp. So Ma and Craig, or Ma and Barb, or whoever was sitting at base camp that night would sit there with no lights, just with the cameras and audio and stuff running, and they would listen and observe while we're doing this hike back and forth on the property. And they would have interactions. So on one night, we set up a thermal imaging video camera, and I put a piece of cardboard over the back of it so it wasn't illuminated. And we put it just in the woods behind where the car turnaround was. So it was facing back deeper into the woods. And then myself and Rachel that night went back and sat on this log in the very back of this area. While we were back there, I felt something poke me in the back of the ear. So there was no sticks or nothing behind us. And on thermal, nothing shows up behind us either, like that came in. I feel like something taps me on the back of the ear, and Rachel gets poked in the butt by a stick or something back there. So we started to have what we believe is 3 of these things around us. There was one up ahead of us over here. There was one directly behind us, and there was one, I don't remember offhand, but off to the side, one of the sides. I want to say it was this side, which is backwards from what you're looking at me. But so we believe that there was 3 of them back there. So what we did was we stood up. And we're like, okay, it's getting weird back here. There's something here. Time to move out. So we went out past here. This is the most evidence we got on one night, and it's kind of broken up here. So we're gonna jump back and forth. But this trail camera was set up on time lapse, and it is looking back towards that car turnaround. So back here is where that thermal imager is set up, and then way back off over here is where we were sitting back in the woods. So right here, there was 3 pictures. This one, and this one. Right here, it's kind of hard to see, but there's a silhouette. So here's zoomed in. You can see what looks like an arm, a head, an arm, and then the body coming down. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. Hopefully you can see it. It's a little bit lighter than the background of the picture itself. So I don't know which way its head is facing, if it's looking towards us, away from us, whatever. But it looks like basically the Patterson-Gimlin creature walking, one arm in front, one arm behind, across the screen right here. So again, head, arm back, arm forward, and then the body is right here. So that's what it looks like for anybody that, isn't getting the idea. So that's what's back there. All right. So here then is the regular picture, the picture with a cutout, and then Craig in the same position. So you can see the original photo, a drawing of it around it, and then Craig standing in the same position. Whatever this is about 6.5 feet tall. So I know for a fact, because we have him on video, Craig is at base camp when this photo took place. So this is not Craig wandering around in the woods at night, trying to, spoof evidence or anything like that. He's at base camp. Here's the thing, though. This is not the only piece of evidence that came from this exact night. Somewhere right behind Craig over here is where that thermal imaging camera is. So that recorded for several hours before it finally just turned off that night. But at about the same time, within 10 minutes, I'm not sure which came first, either the trail camera or the thermal imager. I don't know which one came first, but we got this piece of footage. All right, I will play that one more time for you guys. Okay, so when I first saw this, my thought was raccoon, porcupine, something of that nature. But it doesn't necessarily move like any of those. It has kind of what I describe as like an undulating motion to it. It doesn't look very big in this video. So the first thing that we did was we went back out the next weekend, and we set up the camera again in the exact same spot, the exact same camera. This time it's during the day, so it does look a little different. There's more light, more definition to the video, so you can see like the trees and stuff like that. That's why. This is at night, the other one's during the day, more definition. Otherwise, they're exactly in the same spot. We don't know exactly where this creature went across the screen, so we don't know how close or how far away from the camera it was. But we did a recreation, and this is myself. Hang on a second. This is myself crawling across the screen in the same roughly position. And what I'm doing is an army crawl. So I'll let this play.
Yeah, he's kind of moving like that, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, he's kind of moving like that, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm 5'7", and this thing is about my size, maybe. It's very hard to tell based on where this thing was and how close or how far away it was. Again, they look very different because one is day, one is night, and the night you lose the definition of seeing the trees and stuff because it's brighter and there's more clarity and stuff to it. So there's a little bit of differential there, but surprisingly how big this thing was. Now with the undulating motion, we did notice that when you're doing the army crawl, my butt comes up as I pull my legs forward, and it's also very interesting there. What were you wearing? What was I wearing? In this picture, I would probably say like tan, like khaki pants and a t-shirt. That's usually what I wore up to hiding. I don't believe I had a sweatshirt or anything on that day. So I think this would have been in August, so fairly warm. Probably just a regular t-shirt and like khaki pants. So There you go. I don't wear shorts too much up there. Too many bugs and stuff, so they would have been long pants. But I can definitely look that up. But I have all this on video and everything. So, okay. So this was really interesting, really compelling. Then I got the chance to see. Hang on, we're gonna go back here. They seem to crawl lower than us. I think they do get lower by keeping their knees to the sides of them. Exactly. And that's really interesting because again, that's where I get the undulating motion as I crawl is when I bring my knees up across to move across the screen. And that's the same motion that the original creature had. So okay, so really interesting. I was pretty compelled by this to begin with. And this is the other thing is what I think. Now, this is just a hypothesis, but this creature knew that that thermal camera was there. It might not have known what it was, but it knew that it was there. And it thought that if it crawled under it, it might be able to avoid it. Then it stands up and walks out into that clearing area where the photograph of the trail camera captures it. So either it walked out there, then crawled, or crawled, then walked. But those two photographs are within 10 minutes of each other. So I know that they're within 10 minutes. They could be within a matter of seconds of each other. But because the thermal video isn't time stamped, I kind of have to go with a rough approximation of when I started the video, how long it played into the video versus when the timestamp on the trail camera was taken. And it gets hairy, but it's definitely within 10-minute block of each other. So I got to see a presentation by Charlie Raymond. And Charlie Raymond has a video. I do have permission to share this in my presentation from Charlie. I'm not going to play the whole thing here because it's a very long clip, but you can go look on his website and watch this video. It is taken by them of what they believe is a thermal image of a Bigfoot crawling. And it is very similar to what is shown in my two clips of the reenactment. And as far as the I'll let it play a little bit here. I'm going to mute it in the background. Oops. But so this is the clip from Charlie Raymond, and it's very similar to what we captured on thermal that night in the woods. So, but his belief was that this was a creature that was. I thought he said it was standing, and then it dropped down and started crawling. But they have quite a bit of footage of this that you can go. I think the whole video is like 7 minutes long. But again, this is copyright Charlie Raymond. I have it with permission from Charlie Raymond to show it in my presentation. But you can go on his YouTube channel and watch the full footage of this and see it. So very interesting. All right. So we have audio evidence on the property as well. Everyone in the audience should be pretty familiar with the Sierra sounds. We're not going to recap those too much. You got the whoops, you got the samurai chatter. I think everyone's kind of familiar with that stuff. So we'll move on from that. I'm not going to play the audio of the Sierra sounds that I have in here. But this is audio of the whoops captured on the Hide and Adventure property. This was the last time we heard them 3 times throughout the very first weekend, Memorial Day weekend 2020. This was the last set of whoops captured on the property that weekend and the last time we've ever heard them there. There's a little ridge at the edge of the property. And I was walking over there in the morning because this is where these whoops were coming from. And as I got to the edge of this ridge, the whoops cut off. And it's kind of transcribed at the bottom so you can see. But it's whoop, whoop, and then whoop, uh-oh. And that was the last time we ever heard them. So I will let you listen to that. Yeah, and that was the last time that we heard whoops on the property. So it's almost like the uh-oh was he got caught. He saw me coming and he's like, uh-oh, somebody found me. I saw 3 deer out in the woodline out here, and that was it. So, I mean, maybe deer make that noise. I don't know. I don't think so. But that was the only thing that I saw. I've tried to zoom in. I've tried to scour this video to see if you can see anything out here in the woods. This is hardwoods. It is reforestation, so it's pretty open. You can kind of see through it. At the time when this was shot, there's nothing there. I don't know where the sound was coming from. I know the direction it was coming from, but that's it. So all right. This was the only time that we heard the samurai chatter at night. It is very brief. It's like whoa, 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 and that's it. So you have to listen very carefully for this. But me and Craig were walking back to the car turnaround. We had just been growled at by something in the wood line. And I said to Craig, is that a bear? And he said, no, bears don't growl like that. They don't sound like that. I said, do you think it's a Bigfoot? He said, yes. So again, this sound came from back in that back corner where the knob, where these things supposedly came out, and then they come onto the property from that angle where they sit and watch. Again, the only time we ever heard this. I'm going to mute myself, and you can listen to this. Hopefully you guys could hear that. It was really quick. Whoa, 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 something of that nature. So yeah, there you go. All right. So with all this being said, there's been a couple actual visual sightings of creatures on the property. The first one, and I'm not going to play this whole interview because you can go back and listen to the whole episode with myself and
Very cool. And you have had a encounter on the Hayden property as well, is that right?
Oh, yeah, that was interesting. It was during my visit in 2019. There was the day after we had the convention. I was going to the airport later that day, and the way that I worked there, I was staying in a camper on the Sulk's property there, and about it was in the middle of the night. I was awakened by a thumping sound. It was I don't know, I don't recall any vibration at all, but I do remember the sound that woke me up. And I looked at the clock, and it was about 20 after 3 in the morning, and laid there for a little while, for a few seconds, and then I heard a noise that was just it didn't connect. It was just a weird noise, and I couldn't figure it out. It was anywhere between 4 and 6 seconds, somewhere around in there. And then it got quiet again. And then after a little bit, I heard it again. And I kept saying to myself, what is that noise? It was just this, it was almost a low groan, a little gurgling to it. And I couldn't figure out what, it just didn't, having just woken up, I just couldn't figure out what was going on. I heard it a third time and didn't connect. And then a fourth time, and I went, wait a minute. I recognized that sound at that point. It was the sound of somebody's stomach growling. And that everybody knows that noise that it makes. And I said to myself, okay, I was laying right next to a window, and it clicked in my head what could be done. There was something on the other side of that window, and I reached for the window, and my hand hit the curtain that was covering it. And so I fumbled with the curtain for just a few seconds, and then by the time I pulled it open, all I could see was this huge shape, that had, presumably was blocking the window. And I saw this huge shape turn away from the window. And then all of a sudden there's the starlight and everything else behind it. So something was obviously in that window. And I sat up in the camper and looked down the center aisle to the front of the camper, and I could see that the front windows were open slightly, just enough to see out the bottom, maybe that much. And I could see a shape cross between the pickup truck that was parked in front of the camper and the camper itself.
So that is Rich Daniels' encounter. He talks about it more on the interviews that we've done with him here on the Untold Radio Network. So you can go check that out as well. That was an interview that I did with him on my old show, Monday Morning Monsters. So there you go. And then the second person who have actually had a visual sighting was my mom. So here's her encounter.
The gravel over here. And I said, well, I heard, but I didn't know, kind of sound like gravel. And then later on, then I said, I heard stuff on the gravel. And then he was hearing stuff in the woods, over here and over there. And then I could hear other twigs and stuff snapping over there. Then he said there was something thrown through the woods.
I forgot that.
Yeah.
Something being thrown through the woods.
That's what it sounded like.
For some reason, I just turned and looked over there, and I just saw this big shadow. And I looked and I went, I don't want to look. I just turned around, and then he's like, did you see something? I'm like, no. But he had to be, it was in the second section of the metal bars there.
I'll go
So
stand
where
there.
the table is.
Okay, yep. That's
It wasn't on the corner. He was between those two. And it was a lot bigger than that. Yeah. But then it was more sideways. Yeah. No, that way. And then its arm just went up. But it was higher than the carport. I couldn't see the hand on the arm because I could just see a furry arm. But it was a lot bigger than him. But it was just a shadow.
Just a shadow.
But I could tell the arm kind of looked hairy. But
it probably was it probably wasn't a shadow.
Yeah. Not a shadow
darker
of
than
it,
dark
but
over
I mean,
there.
I just saw a dark,
Uh-huh.
and then I could see like an arm go up.
Weird.
Yeah, and I just looked and went, huh, and just turned back around, and then I looked back and I didn't see it again.
And it's because of how she turned is why I asked you.
Yeah,
And I mean, I wasn't even looking at you, and I could see something happened over here.
because I just was trying to look around,
Uh-huh.
and so I don't know why I turned that way because you can't see anything anyway.
So that's kind of a recreation picture there that shows what it looked like and how big it was. So it was bigger than Craig. Craig is 6'3" again. So the typical Sasquatch that we found on the property was about 6.5 feet tall based on the original photographs and the other photographs that we got. Seems like the one that seems to get photographed there is about 6.5 feet tall, not the one on the neighbor's property by that shooting lane. It seems a lot bigger. But the ones that were photographed on this property, this 80 acres, were about 6.5 feet. So, oops. All right, guys, that is the gist of the presentation. There is a book if you're interested. It is all three, or it is 3 books in one. It is available on Amazon.com. It is Craig wrote the first book and self-published it, and it is about all about the original image and everything that happened on the property. Craig was working on the second book when he got thyroid cancer and passed away in April of 2021. And with permission, we took that book, we edited it up and got it finished. And then I wrote a third book of everything that happened from 2021 to 2024 on the property. So it's 10 years of research on that property. There's all kinds of pictures, documentation. There's all kinds of other stories and stuff in here. So it's all full color as well. All kinds of stuff. Here's some black cat footage pictures and stuff that were taken on the property. Large puma size creatures, the dogman stories in here. There's all kinds of other evidence and research as well, trail camera photos, all kinds of stuff in there. It's hard to see with the green screen and stuff, but all kinds of stuff, porta potty damage, all kinds of stuff in there. So you can get this. It is in the show notes for anybody that is interested in that. A link to the Amazon. We have also done quite a bit of videography and video and stuff research on the property. So it is available on our YouTube channel, Wisconsin Caps on YouTube. And I put it all in one folder in chronological order so you can see it. There is a whole series called Finding Hayden, like Finding Bigfoot, but this is Finding Hayden. They're 30-minute episodes, and each episode focuses on a specific research project or research task on the property. So there's 30 minutes just on the peanut butter jars where you see all the footage, see all the evidence, the trail camera pictures, where it is, where it isn't, the stick structures, documenting all that, all kinds of stuff. I mean, like we have, if you're interested in detailed research on this stuff, Finding Hayden on our YouTube channel, Wisconsin Caps. So yeah, that is what I got for you today. I have an entire huge hard drive down here of pictures and evidence. If you guys have any questions or something that you'd like to see again or in better detail, put it in the comments and I will get to that as soon as possible. Lee says, didn't someone see something by the porta potty during the hike? Oh, so yeah, yes and no. So when we did the last convention up in Upper Michigan, we had PBS Wisconsin come out and do the hike with us, and it just aired on Wisconsin Life in January on the episode of Wisconsin Life, the first one of this year. And they were shooting footage while we were shooting footage, and they said that they saw something cross one of the 2-track lanes between the porta potty and base camp. I'm pretty sure it was just a person after talking with some people at base camp, but they did see that. As far as the porta potty, there's a whole story about that one morning they got up, Craig and Barb, and went out on the property, and the porta potty had been like assaulted, like somebody like big muddy handprints and stuff. They found a hair sample on it that actually disappeared. But they had handprints and stuff on the porta potty, like somebody was trying to open it or get into it. I saw it when I was just flipping through it here for you guys, but yeah, so this is the photographs of that. Just kind of like some muddy stuff in that on the yeah, there's hardcover and softcover as well. This is the hardcover of it, but any other questions? You're welcome. I thought that after we would get into some hard evidence on today's show and actually show you some pictures and some stuff instead of just claiming things. I don't know. Thought I would give that a try on the show today. So again, this year is the 5-year anniversary of Craig's passing, and I'm just kind of wanted to put this out there because I have been touring with this and the museum for the last couple of years all over the United States, and we do have a full display set up. I'm going to see if I can. I don't know if I can pull it up. No, I don't have that there. I do have a whole like traveling museum that we take that is all of the displays of the Hayden property, and it shows it set up so that you can see all the evidence. And then in that is little QR codes that you can scan, and it shows you a video clip of Craig actually giving that part of the presentation and that part of the tour. So it's very, very cool to see. Very, I don't know. Craig was a very influential on me. in the short amount of time that I got to spend with him from 2019 to 2021. And for a while, we were spending almost every weekend with him for 3 days a weekend and doing all this research. And it was some great times. And this is the man that helped launch CAPS, because like I said at the beginning of the show, if it wasn't for Craig showing me that these things were in Wisconsin, in Upper Michigan, that I probably wouldn't have started going out and looking for them. I had been into paranormal and obviously cryptids and stuff prior to this, but I never thought that they were here. Like so many other people, I thought these things were out in the Pacific Northwest and, a long way from me, and that I wasn't going to travel just to look for Bigfoot. And Craig opened my eyes that these things were right here in Wisconsin, in Upper Michigan, and all over the United States, all over the world, basically. And this is what got me started, what led me to the books by Linda Godfrey, what led me to the Burlington Woods, and what started Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society, my research team. So we got this whole thing. I wouldn't be on this radio station, this network right now if it weren't for Craig. And I owe him a lot. And I really appreciate all the time that I got to spend with him. And I know my mom does as well, and other members of my team that got to work with him. So very, very cool stuff. With that being said, guys, I highly encourage you, check out the show notes, go watch all the Finding Hidden stuff on our YouTube channel. You can see all this stuff. Again, nothing to hide, all the evidence there. You can watch 30-minute little detailed episodes of all these stories and stuff. And there's so much more than what is just even on our YouTube channel, and that we haven't got a chance to edit or put out, and all kinds of more experiences and stuff that we've had on the property. It was a really amazing time. But like I said, we did stop researching there in 2024 at the end, because things stopped happening. For whatever reason, with Craig being out there every weekend, and us being out there every weekend in 2020, there was activity, there was interaction between us and them. And then after Craig passed, it just slowly fizzled off to the point where we weren't finding any new evidence, we weren't finding any more tracks, we weren't getting any of the stuff there. That's why we stopped doing it, because it just they moved on, or just weren't as active. When you're not out there every weekend and researching and documenting and stuff, they don't tend to come in as much. There was no water on Craig's property. They stopped baiting because Barb wasn't hunting on the back of the property. So you lost a lot of the food source and stuff that these things might have been coming to the property for. So it just, I think that they're still in the area, but we weren't getting the interactions that we were in 2019 to 2021. So there you go, guys. All right. I am going to leave you with a tribute video to Craig Sulk, because I think that's really cool. And again, 5 years since he passed, and I want to kind of just pay tribute to him. So with that being said, guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in this week. Remember to like, subscribe, and share all things here on the Untold Radio Network, and all things cryptids, anomalies, and the Paranormal Society. You can find more information on the Hidden Adventure at wisconsincaps.com. Click on the Hidden Adventure Traveling Exhibit. If you know anybody that's interested in seeing it in person, we are still touring with it, probably through the end of this year, but then we're going to stop touring with the museum, because it's a lot to haul, and it takes up a lot of space. It takes up a 10 by 10 booth just in itself. So this is probably going to be the last year that we're going to showcase it before moving on. But with that being said, guys, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time. See you on the edge.
I love you so much. You're welcome. I'm glad I sent you in here. You just wanted to go walking down the road, go get supper. But no, I sent you in here and look what happened.